All right, welcome everyone to the stream this evening. We are currently going live regarding a discussion on the upcoming severe weather events that will be occurring in the central United States and the Midwest. So, currently, I'm going to be showing you the National Weather Service SPC outlooks here. You can see that this is day 2, and we already have a slight risk there. That is a slight risk of severe weather. So, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so that's a 3 out of 6 on the scale if you're counting the thunderstorm, 2 out of 5 if you're not. But anyway, we do see that this slight risk is issued for portions of Kansas, Nebraska, and Missouri, and even parts of southern Iowa there if you zoom in far enough. But that's the very tail end of southern Iowa, so not too much there regarding that. Now, if we go to the tornado, we have a 5% risk there, so nothing too special with that, but we do see kind of a marginal threat for tornadoes tomorrow as we move into tomorrow, so that is something you will want to keep an eye out on. Let's go ahead and shift over here a little bit. I know I'm kind of uh, it's kind of weird the way that the screen is set up, but there you go. So we have a 5% risk kind of near the Kansas City area. That's for portions of Missouri and eastern Kansas. And then you can see for much of Oklahoma and Kansas, we do have a 2% risk. So again, kind of a marginal threat for tornadoes. We're not really too much focused on the tornado aspect, but what we really want to focus on is more of the damaging wind threat and hail. You can see we do have a 15% risk for hail there, for damaging wind, sorry. And we have a 5% risk for damaging wind anywhere from the Dallas-Fort Worth area all the way up into Nebraska, Iowa, and western Illinois. So this is all for tomorrow. You can see that primarily we're going to be dealing with more damaging wind and hail. We do see that elevated mix layer is going to be kind of eroded tomorrow, and that will kind of leave a dry layer per se that's going to help with hail development. You can see here we have a hatched 15% risk. So basically, that's the National Weather Service saying that for the 15% risk area, they are expecting more of that more damaging hail threat with the hail that's might be present with tomorrow's storms. So we do see this is anywhere from northeastern Kansas, very far southeastern Nebraska, and western Missouri there. You can see this is an area we're going to want to watch out for that hail threat because that is something that will be relevant tomorrow. So now, moving on to the models, we're going to be looking at the HRRR here with COD Meteorology, the College of DuPage. And we're looking at the 18Z HRRR model run. This has just been kind of completed within the last hour. Now, as we move in through the next couple hours, you can see there's not too much going on. Over the night, though, as we move into the tonight, we see storms start to fire up. Now, these are going to be relatively weak. We don't really have too much going on with the atmosphere. Not a lot of surface cape, and there's not a lot to support this, especially with daytime heating going down as we head into the nighttime hours. But as we move into tomorrow, all of this is going to create moisture. Now, again, we see all that rainfall dropping onto the ground. Okay, so this is going to be over tonight. Then we move into tomorrow morning. Tomorrow morning, we get that daytime heating. We get that moisture rising up again into the morning hours and then into the afternoon. And that's where we see the storms. Again, look how that's previous, where we see that previous storm setup from the night before. Now we see that moisture rising into a convective manner, and we see a line, an MCS, kind of form off of this warm front here. And that's going to be pushing northeast. So you see really strong to severe thunderstorms there. You can see a lot of the stronger cells there. Reflectivity is looking very potent. Now, let's go ahead and look at some of the parameters here. So our temperature, we're looking at temperatures tomorrow. Tonight, we're heading into you can see that low over there. Warmer temperatures are going to advect from the south. Now, that's with that warm air advection with the warm front that we're looking that's pushing these storms. So that's kind of what's going to be forcing these storms northward is that warm front. You can see there we have our low over there, 1,002 millibars, and then we see those 60-degree Fahrenheit temperatures kind of pushing northward with this event. So again, tomorrow, we're looking at about 74, mid-70s, low to mid-70s in the temperature-wise. And then if we look over at our dew point around the same time, we see some of those dew points reaching up into the 50s and up into some of the lower 60s. So not really too much on the moisture side. We are looking kind of lower humidity at the surface level with these storms, but with the front, with that's going to allow that buoyancy, and we won't need too much to get these storms going. So not a lot of surface humidity per se, but as this does push later, we do see those dew points of up in 60s kind of push up with that Gulf moisture that's pushing northeastward. Now that's going to create a nice potent atmosphere for these storms to develop. Regarding vorticity, so let's go ahead and look at our type of wind shear dynamic here. Not a lot going on at first, obviously, as we move into tonight, but then as we move tomorrow, as that low pressure system kind of pushes northeastward with this line, you can see there's a lot of vorticity within this line. Again, we have warm air advection at the surface, anywhere from the surface to 850 millibars. That is going to be moving northward at about roughly 10 to 15 knots. And then we have our upper level winds moving east northeast, very sharp turn, and that's going to be kind of creating that wind shear that we have here within this MCS. And you can see a lot of vorticity here is going to be present with this, definitely creating the threat for tornadoes. That's not the primary threat with this event, but that is definitely a possibility as we move into tomorrow. Now, regarding the damaging wind threat, let's go ahead and look at our wind gusts. So this is going to be our surface wind gusts, 10 meters, and you can see here with tonight's storms, we don't really get too much going on with those. We have about 45 to 50 knots. Again, nothing too special, nothing too particular. That's about upper to mid 40 mile per hour wind gusts to lower 50 mile per hour wind gusts there. That's with tonight. So definitely some potentially severe thunderstorms tonight with some of these storms if that does get potent enough. But I don't think the severe threat tonight stays very low, and we don't really see too much potential. Again, not much severe potential as we move into tonight. But then tomorrow, where we get that moisture again advecting northward, we see that potential for stronger to severe thunderstorms. We see a lot of that potential for some of those stronger wind gusts up to again, I don't know why this is not reading. There we go. We see up to 40 to 50 knots in some areas where we probably could see around 60 knots if we get to that point, maybe the mid 50s or so. That is definitely a possibility with this as this low pressure system pushes eastward. Now, let's go to the convective aspects. We're going to look at our surface-based CAPE and convective inhibition. Now, again, if you don't know what convective inhibition is, that basically is describing the a lack of surface instability if we're talking about convective inhibition at the surface. Now, convective inhibition can happen anywhere in the atmosphere, just like CAPE, but it's a layer of stable air, so not really what we want for storm development. Now, what we have here so far, we see our CAPE so far at the surface tonight in that area of around 40 joules per kilogram or so. Actually, that's around 1,500 to 2,000 joules per kilogram. This isn't really reading back too correctly here. But we do see that into tonight. Then that system moves through, that little short, weak system that moves through. That's going to eat up that energy. But then we see tomorrow with that warm air advection, we start to see some of those areas, 3,000 plus joules per kilogram suggested by the HRRR forecast model. And then we see a lot of this moisture continue to surge upward at about 5 to 10, even some areas of 15 knots. So again, kind of a stronger bit of warm air advection at the surface. And then we only see that further intensify as we move into tomorrow night and into tomorrow evening. We do see a lot of that moisture kind of kick up and a lot of that surface instability there. Again, look at that 2,650 joules per kilogram of CAPE, and that's at the surface, so we have a lot of surface instability there. Now, another factor regarding the surface instability is the 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE. This is very important for tornado dynamics. Again, we need that surface instability because we're dealing with tornadoes and they're towards the surface, and they need that moisture to feed off of into the updraft. So a moisture lack at the surface is definitely a good way to starve off any potential for tornadoes. Not always, again, especially with cold core setups, but this is not one of those, and we do need that surface energy. So you can see here with the 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE, we do have about 100 joules per kilogram, definitely. So usually with tornado events, you want at least 100 or so joules per kilogram plus of 0 to 3 kilometer CAPE. That's kind of where we're standing right now. So we're looking good for some tornado potential tomorrow if this area interacts with that sheared environment. So you can see there, those storms kind of eat that up real nice as those storms move northeastward. Again, a lot of that moisture creating a very unstable atmosphere at the surface. Once that cap breaks, that elevated mix layer is going to break, and then we see these storms fire. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and let's see what we want to do next. I'm going to go... One thing with COD meteorology is they don't really offer too much wind kind of wind simulation, so we're not really going to get to see the 500 millibar jet or the 850 millibar jet, simply because I don't have those on COD meteorology, and I don't really want to go to Pivotal Weather because I have it set up right now to where it's perfectly fit to the screen on COD. So basically, let's see if we can get something that can demonstrate that. We have 700 millibar vertical velocity. So basically, this will kind of show you our upward movement at the 700 millibar level. That's a little bit above the surface, a couple thousand feet above the surface. And you can see here strong updrafts there. You can see we have relatively strong updrafts there. And once that punctures through the sheared environment, that's obviously going to create an environment that's worthy for tornadoes per se. So definitely something you want to watch out for. So let's go ahead and look at our average cloud cover, because when we talk about storm development, again, with that moisture that we have tonight from those storms, we want that to evaporate for storm development if you are looking to develop storms. If you're not, then obviously you don't want that. But for the factor of storm development, we do have, okay, our clouds are moving into tonight. We see roughly about 100% cloud cover there with that storm movement. And then tomorrow, as we move into tomorrow, look at that. We have a clear skies for much of eastern Kansas and western Missouri. Some partial clouds here and there, especially as the convection starts to build. But that's going to create that scenario where we have daytime heating. Again, sun heats up the ground, water evaporates, and obviously that creates a lot of surface moisture as that's evaporating and rising up into the atmosphere. That's going to create a relatively unstable atmosphere tomorrow on top of our warm front surging northwards. So that's going to definitely create a potent scenario for tomorrow instability-wise. And then if on top of our shear, again, if we look at our vorticity, once that moves through, we have, again, surface winds moving about roughly 15 knots north, and then it quickly turns, and then at about the 700 to 500 millibar level, we have winds surging east to northeast. So really a lot of directional shear present for tomorrow's setup. Definitely something that's going to help with the tornado development. And our speed shear is looking good as well. I know the NAM is definitely suggesting that we have more of a PDS tornado event. I don't believe that we're going to go that far, but I do believe that we will have the potential to see 1 or 2 tornadoes tomorrow as we move throughout the event. So I feel like we've talked enough about tomorrow's event. Let's go ahead and get a different sector here. Let's go to the SBC again. And now what we want to do is we want to look at the day 3. So we have a day 3 event. This is more of a larger event. So this is going to encompass the areas that we talked about for tomorrow's event. This is also going to overlap into Thursday. So Thursday, you guys that are being affected by tomorrow, some of you up here, especially in Illinois, we're going to see that potential for a kind of a storm development into Thursday as well. So this is going to be a multi-day event for you. Now, we also see down here for Texas, we see portions of Texas being included in that as well. That's going to include you guys on Thursday. So this is for Thursday. This is day 3. Now, we don't have, with the SBC on day 3, we don't have any categorical outlook for tornado, hail, or wind. We just have this general outlook here, total severe probability legion in percent. Now, right now, we have our 5%, which is indicated in the brown here. And that's anywhere from north of Houston all the way over here to northern Iowa and southern Wisconsin. So you can see there, a lot of areas are included in that. And then we have 2 hatched areas in the 15%. So the yellow is the 15% risk. That's more of a higher risk too as well. So that's we're not really going to go into detail, but that's likely going to indicate a slight risk of severe weather more than likely. So we do see the 15% risk is likely going to transition over to a slight risk. We already have that slight risk in place if you look at the categorical outlook, but I do believe that's going to continue as a slight risk. I don't really see too much potential of that increasing at the moment. But we do see here the hatched 15% risk region. There's one north here over the previous day severe weather track over here in Illinois, Iowa, and Missouri. And then we see one down here for the Dallas-Fort Worth area, up south of east of Oklahoma City, and then into Arkansas, southwestern Arkansas there. These are all areas that could experience some of that strong to severe weather on Thursday. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the NAM. We're going to need the NAM for this one simply because we can't go out that far with the HRRR. Again, this is into Thursday. We can't see that far out yet with our current HRRR run. Tomorrow we will be able to, but not right now. So we can see here for the NAM so far, let's go ahead and start off with our 2-meter AGL temperature. We're looking at so far, again, tomorrow, we see those 70s, upper 70s, lower 80s for much of Texas there. And now we're seeing, as we move into Thursday, you can see that warm air advection there again at the surface, kind of moving at a northwest angle there. when you're around Galveston, Texas, or Houston. And then we move up towards Dallas, and that's where it kind of corrects itself, per se, and heads northward at around 10 to 15 knots. So you can see there, warm air advection pretty much surging up there with those 70 to upper 70 to lower 80 degree Fahrenheit temperatures. And dew point wise, we see much higher levels of humidity than we saw the previous day for that northern event, which is going to be happening tomorrow. This event for Thursday, we do see anywhere in the mid to upper 60 degree dew points. And then we also see for some isolated areas, we have here 70 degree dew points just east of Dallas-Fort Worth, the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And this continues to surge. Now look at that. Now this event is going to interact with the cold front. Tomorrow's event is not going to interact with that cold front. So very two different types of setups. Tomorrow's event for the north is going to be a warm front type event. And this event for Thursday is going to interact with that cold front there. You can see right there. We already have that dry line in place over central Texas. That's not really going to do too much. But then you can see here, right up here is where we have that cold front moving, and you can kind of see that start to push all that moisture down. Very strong cold front that's going to quickly eat up all this moisture and create some powerful thunderstorms as we move into Thursday. So let's go ahead and look at that. We're going to look at the temperature again so I can show you that cold front. Look at that. Some powerful cold air coming down. You're quickly going to send into Thursday. You're going to go from 70 degrees Fahrenheit temperatures, and then you're going to go ahead and head into the 40s as you progress throughout the night. Even some 30s up here for northwestern Texas up there in the Panhandle. So definitely a very quick switch for that temperature. Now, let's go ahead and look at the 500 millibar wind speed. This we can actually see here. So I probably should have done this first with tomorrow's event, but you can see we get that trough kind of surging in. Very, very strong 500 millibar winds. Now, this isn't going to regard Thursday's event, but you can see here I'm demonstrating kind of what we're seeing so far, what's bringing this system in. We do see 85 to 87 knots at the 500 millibar level, and that's pushing northeast. And once this event moves through, we do see relatively strong mid-level winds. So we have about 42 to 50 knots. So 40 to 50 knots at that 500 millibar level. And then if we go more towards the surface at the 850 millibar level, this is where your warm air advection is going to be in place. Then you also see some of these stronger conditions. We see early on about 40 to 50 knots at the 850 millibar level. That's going to surge all that warm, moist air up into Texas, surging all that humidity up there in place of the cold front. And then once that cold front comes through, that's going to eat all that up. We'll also see this at the 925 millibar level. This is very close to the surface. And you can see here, definitely strong warm air advection at the surface. We see about 30 to 35 knots there. Even some areas of isolated 40 knot areas at the surface. That's going to be some pretty strong wind gusts surging up with that warm air advection. Now, we do have pretty steady lapse rates as of right now. So basically what that means is the temperature difference with height. And you can see here at the surface, just above the surface at the 925 millibar level, we do have relatively warm temperatures. Again, look at these. This is 17 degrees Celsius. So that's a little bit colder than the surface. We're already seeing those lapse rates kick in, even just at the 925 millibar level. Let's go to the 850 millibar level. Very quick descent there. Now we're at 15 degrees Celsius, and then we go to 700 millibars, same time frame. And then with the 700 millibar level, we see with the temperature, if it's going to load. There we go. Okay, so you can see here, 8 degrees Celsius, very quick drop there. And finally, we're not really going to go all the way up to 250 millibar level, but at the final 500 millibar level here at our mid-level, very cold mid-level winds there, upper level temperatures there. And you can see negative 13 degrees Celsius, very quick change there, very steep lapse rates in some of these areas. And that's going to help create that instability and allow for this partial to rise, these partials that are going to create these thunderstorms. Definitely kind of a nice scenario if you're a storm chaser, not so nice of a scenario if you're a regular civilian. But let's go to our precipitation and simulated reflectivity that I've been kind of putting off so far with the NAM. So you can see heading into tomorrow, some spotty showers with that warm air advection, nothing too crazy, some light rain here and there. Nothing that's really going to help fuel the next day's event with the moisture, but it might here and there if you get heavy enough rainfall that accumulates on the surface. But Moving into Thursday, we do see some of those spotty showers with that warm air advection. Again, you see some of those heavier showers with that warm air advection surging there. And that kind of interacts with that cold front there. You can see some of these storms in the northeast portion here up towards Oklahoma. Those start to fire around 18Z to 21Z Thursday. So it's going to be about mid-morning to afternoon. That's when you're going to start to see these start to fire up. For Central Time, that's going to be more morning, so mid-morning or so, around 10 a.m. And then we're going to head into the afternoon here, and you start to see these build off of the front. You can already see some of that supercellular structure again with some of these storms. They head northeast, and that cold front is going to push them kind of in a southeast motion, and that's going to help create that wind sheared environment that you're seeing there. So this front is going to come through and push all this moisture. I do believe that the tornadic event, if there's any tornado potential, it's going to be early on, obviously, because once that becomes more outflow dominant and that front starts to push all this moisture south, we're going to kind of lose that potential. But these early cells are going to be the ones with your most tornado threat. So we kind of see the southern event. Let's go up here back to the north, and you can see these cells continue northeast as that front pushes them southeast. And by the time of Friday morning, late Thursday night, Friday morning, the threat is almost diminished because you can see all of that just turns into soggy precipitation, mainly a damaging wind threat and some hail, but the tornado threat would primarily be over at that time. So, surface base cape, we're going to look at this. So let's go back down. Well, actually, since we're already here, we'll stay up here for now. Again, you can see tomorrow's event. Relatively a nice unstable atmosphere there, 2,000 to 3,000 joules per kilogram of convective available potential energy there. And then we head into Thursday, and you kind of see that front eats that all up on Thursday and chews that out. Now, heading back south, we see the cold front do the same thing for the south central United States here. We see 3,000, and again, this is the NAM. The NAM generally likes to overhype things. It likes to hype things up. But with the convective available potential energy here, we do see around 3,000 to 3,500 joules per kilogram, some isolated areas of 3,500 plus joules per kilogram. And we do see that is quickly eaten up very quickly as the front pushes through. So a lot of surface instability that is going to create kind of an unstable atmosphere there for these storms to chew out there as they move through the area. Now, let's see. I hope I didn't shift that too much for you guys because I know... There we go. Okay. There we go. All right. It's trial and error sometimes with trying to make sure everything's perfect. So anyway, looking at the 0 to 3 kilometer storm relative helicity here, this is kind of, again, going to demonstrate to you what kind of sheared environment we have there. Nothing too crazy tomorrow again, but as we move right around the storm event on Thursday, you can see there's going to be some relatively good helicity levels, storm relative helicity there, and that's going to help kind of that demonstrates to you kind of what type of environment we're dealing with these storms. Again, a sheared environment, very good for storm development and tornado development. But I don't believe too much of the threat is going to be tornado based. There is that threat for tornado development, but that's not really where I want to pinpoint the highest risk. We'll obviously see tomorrow as we move to tomorrow. The day 3 outlook will then turn to the day 2 outlook. Then we can see that tornado risk. But as of right now, there's not really any tornado risk for day 3 that we can really look at this moment besides the forecast models. And what they're suggesting is that there is a tornado threat in place, but it's, again, more of a marginal threat for much of these areas in the central United States. But as you see, we do have good wind shear in place. For some of these areas in the northern parts, that also might be a very good place for tornado development as well, especially as we deal with those colder upper level temperatures kind of more towards the low pressure center. That's going to help create that instability. But for the south here, I don't think there's really going to be too much of a tornado threat there per se. Again, I wouldn't rule out the possibility for 1 or 2 tornadoes here and there. That is obviously possible, but primarily this is going to be a wind and hail threat over the next couple days. Let's go ahead to the north there and also see what we're looking at here for storm relative helicity. Again, we surge kind of northeastward here. We don't really deal with too much tomorrow. we do have the potential, like I said, 1 to 2 tornadoes. Wouldn't rule it out. But then we move into into Thursday, and once that front comes through, that adds additional wind shear to this. Again, you can see there stronger helicity levels there, and that's obviously going to create some higher levels of wind shear there, and really create that sheared environment for these storms to kind of spin up, and I wouldn't rule that out. Now, what I'm going to do here in a minute is take a little drink of coffee because I've been talking for a little while, and I know you guys are probably sick and tired of hearing my voice. I haven't done this in a very long time, so it is kind of hard for me to kind of get back on that train. I used to talk for hours and hours back when we streamed about 2 years ago, and it's been a while, so don't mind me if I'm kind of tripping over my words a little bit, and if I'm kind of getting dry mouth here. It's been a minute, so I have to kind of get my voice back in shape here. All right, there we go. Got coffee in place. Okay, so that's really all we have for right now. Again, if we look at the National Weather Service SBC, let's go ahead and look at that extended outlook. And you can see here, nothing on the day 4, nothing on the day 5. Let's zoom in a little bit. Nothing on the day 6, nothing on the day 7, and nothing on the day 8. So after this outlook, the National Weather Service isn't really suggesting anything further. Obviously, there might be some marginal severe weather setups, but nothing too significant regarding more severe weather setups. This is kind of it for this week, but we do see over the next 2 days, that's where our main threat is, and that's why I kind of wanted to go live, because we do see that potential over the next couple days for strong to severe storms. Again, primarily a wind and hail threat, but we do see the potential for a couple tornadoes. That is all possible. Okay, sorry, I didn't even keep up with the comments. Okay, we have 2 different people here. So Sawyer, you asked, what are the predictions for southern Wisconsin? So for southern Wisconsin, let's go ahead over here. Basically, what you're looking at for southern Wisconsin, your primary threat is going to be tomorrow. Again, that storm threat, let's go ahead and look at that simulated reflectivity. This may take just a moment to load. It might not load at all. Okay, there we go. It's loading 27%. It'll be a minute, folks. But let's go ahead back to your comments while we wait. And then Kevin Duke asked, what's the risk for Joplin, Missouri? So first, I'm going to go over Sawyer's comment, and then I'll go look over Joplin, Missouri. But basically, for southern Wisconsin, we don't really see too much of a threat tomorrow. If you look at the National Weather Service SBC here, for tomorrow's event, you don't even see a risk at all. You don't even see the potential for thunderstorms. So there might be a chance for damaging wind and a little bit of hail, so maybe pea-sized hail as these storms move northeast tomorrow, but I don't see too much potential for the southern Wisconsin area. And then if we're looking at day 3, you have a marginal threat. So actually, I'm going to switch up my opinion here now that I've seen kind of what the SBC is showing too. So it looks like Thursday is going to be your more risk for severe weather. Tomorrow, you might get some rain, precipitation, but nothing too severe for southern Wisconsin. So this is Thursday's outlook. You're in that marginal risk depending on where you are in southern Wisconsin. The further up you go more towards central Wisconsin, that threat fades very quickly, and you lose potential because the low pressure center is going to be up here in Minnesota. And as soon as you get towards that colder air, that instantly kills it off. No potential. So anywhere with surface cooler air, that's where you start to get that convective inhibition, and that's not good. So we obviously see the warmer air down here for southern Wisconsin, especially into Thursday. That's where your marginal threat comes from. Again, little to no tornado threat per se, but damaging wind and hail is obviously a possibility. Now, as for, while we're waiting on the models to load, as for Joplin, Missouri, let's go ahead back to our day 2 event here. So for day 2, again, not too much of a risk let's make sure I haven't done this in a while. Let me make sure I know where Joplin is. It's kind of hard to pinpoint on the map before I read it off to you. I know where Kansas City is, but let's go ahead. Okay, that's okay. It's right there, on the Oklahoma Kansas City border there. Oklahoma, Kansas. Look at me tripping over my words again. Okay. Sorry about that, folks. So they're right here at the 3 point there. That's where Joplin is. So I had to kind of figure that out again. But right there you're in a marginal risk tomorrow. So much like Southern Wisconsin on Thursday, you're going to be in that marginal risk tomorrow. And basically, again, you're looking at you're not even inside of that 2% risk there. So you're not really going to be dealing with any tornado threat tomorrow. Again, I wouldn't roll it out for some slight rotation there, maybe even a tornado that might come somewhere through there. I don't ever want to roll that out because that is a potential. But I do think that much of the tornado threat, there's just little to no potential there for tomorrow. Now, the wind threat, the wind and hail, you're in that tomorrow. Both of those threats are 5%, so very little, but that there's still that severe threat available for tomorrow. Now, moving into, if we look for day 3, you are going to be in that slight risk. Now, again, I can't look at that tornado risk because the National Weather Service, SPC, doesn't give that for the day 3 outlook, at least not yet. Tomorrow, when this turns to day 2 outlook, we will be able to see that. But you can see here, you're right on the border of that 15% risk for severe weather. So you're right about on that slight risk there. And as you can see, like if we go back to our categorical outlook there, you're right on the slight risk there. Still kind of in that marginal, but I wouldn't roll the slight extended out there. And basically, there's not too much of a threat for severe weather, but a slight risk is kind of a higher end than that. So continuing that threat, we're going to see more of those damaging winds be relevant into Thursday, and that hail threat into Thursday as well. That's going to be more of your severe weather day. So tomorrow, a little bit of a severe weather threat. I wouldn't really be too concerned about that. Thursday is your more enhanced severe weather threat, as you can see here, and that's where we're going to kind of have to look out for those potential for damaging winds and hail, although I don't expect that to be too significant. Now, it doesn't look like our models are going to load anymore, so my apologies about that. I think I just kind of wore the website out because everything else is working. I think the website just does not like me. But if you rewind the video, you've obviously seen that what I've gone over, and that's kind of what we're looking at. So again, for both of you guys, for Sawyer and Kevin, I don't believe that we're really going to have too much of a severe weather threat for you guys. But for Kevin, more so you than Sawyer up there, I do believe that you're going to have more of the severe weather threat as we move into Thursday. So that's pretty much about it. If anybody else has any more questions, I'll give you about a minute if you want to ask them. Other than that, I'm going to head off here because we've pretty much covered everything that I needed to cover. And I think that's pretty much it for the severe weather discussion. So if you have anything else you would like me to cover, just let me know before I head off here. Again, for those just tuning in, we're going to be heading off here very shortly. If you have any questions, I can answer them for you shortly before I head out. Other than that, we're pretty much done. If you did miss the severe weather discussion, you can obviously rewind this video after it is published. Right as I end the live stream, it'll instantly be published. You can rewatch it. But other than that, if you have any questions, just ask me. But other than that, I'm going to head off here in about 30 seconds.